know how to say fake it till you make it. I believe in that to an extent. So like you said, he couldn't control everything, but he at least set the parameters in his mind that he could.
The devil's the ego. And so that's that dialogue that you're consistently having, like, hey, I should work out today. And then it's like, start Monday. That's the ego.
You could probably just do the thing that's a little bit more convenient, but you probably don't realize it yet. And I've referred to this as having a broke mindset.
And I just make the decision to die on that line and hold that line no matter what.
Every month I'm studying one franchise that's successful, one that's failing, and I want to know the whys behind it.
We know that you can slowly but surely get better at something, do it once or twice a week. We know that, but it's a more difficult route, and that's the route of somebody who's super patient and super mature. Most of the time, we're neither one of those. I've been out on a bunch of runs recently where I just kind of start out. I usually start out the same way. I usually just kind of like go, and then I'm like, let me see what's available for today. Yeah. And then I start to kind of get into it more. I try not to obsess over like times or anything like that, but
that's good.
Sometimes you're just moving and you're like, oh, I'm moving pretty good today. And you pick up the pace and I'm like, man, I'm fucking kicking ass today. Yep. And then like 20 minutes later, I'm like, I'm not doing so great.
There's waves. It's a very, you ride the wave.
And your brain too. Your brain is all like on fire. It's like I chugged a mind bullet or something, it feels like. Everything's just fire and fire and fire. And then it's like, this isn't a good idea anymore. You should fucking go home.
So that's its own thing. But for sure, the longer you run, the more pronounced that gets. The ups and the downs. Yeah. But the thing is, just like we were talking, like this is going to pass.
Yeah, you can
find when you're at the bottom and it sucks, and you know you're going to be back at the top before long. It might be an hour. It might be 3 minutes, but you're going to be back. You'll be all right. But that. Admittedly, sometimes once you get closer to like your actual limits as far as just what your body can do, the mind really starts to try to save itself.
And I've noticed this is a good idea, or that's why I'm a big proponent of like trying to run in a lot of different areas. I think it's important because when you see like that you're getting close to the finish, that's when the pain will come in a little bit more. You're like, oh man, I'm close. And whether it's like a let up or whether you're just like excited because you're about to finish, even if you're thinking like I'm going to finish strong, I think you're better off being like oblivious. Yeah. Sometimes, not for all your training, but sometimes.
I mean, I set my biggest PRs in the gym when I'm not paying attention to the weight. Right. So I'd say the same thing. I hit the flow. Like I'm jiu-jitsu, lifting, running. I love the flow state. I try to find that and just ride it. I ride that wave But like I said, it comes. There's ups and there's downs, and eventually, sometimes you do have to, do some powerful self-talk or some imagery or whatever, in anything, not just running or training. But Goggins talks about like the Rocky movies being like the piece of imagery that he uses. I think for everyone it's different. And I think once you find yours, even if you're not a runner, it's a powerful tool. With me, it was more. I've always kind of admired feats of will as much as strength or endurance or anything else, and sacrifice. So like the story of the 300, that's always just made my skin stand on end. Or there's stories of Native American warriors when the cavalrymen were coming on the village and they needed to buy time for the women and children to escape. They'd drive a stake. A line of them would line up and drive a stake into the ground in between them and the village and the cavalrymen. And each would tie a rope to one end of the stake and tie the other end to himself and just swear to die on that ground, and he'd fight to the last. And so stuff like that has always been something that moved me.
Yeah, you're like, somebody's done shit way harder than
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I can run for a day or for, until things stop working if they did that. And so sometimes it helps whatever your thing is. And for me, it's just when I feel that, when I know it's not just riding the wave anymore, when I know things are starting to shut down and parts of my body kind of stop working, that's the time when I mentally draw a line in the sand and I picture everything that I love and care about and everything that I could be, everything that I am on one side of the line and everything that wants to take that away or compromise that on the other. And I just make the decision to die on that line and hold that line no matter what. And more often than not, once you do that, you get, if you're truly, truly willing to make that sacrifice, it's liberating. And after that, you hold, and you do whatever it takes. And if you fail, that's fine, but at least die like a man on your feet, So, but like I said, different for everyone.
Yeah, no, but again, like what you just did there it's another aspect of like literally being grateful for what you're doing at that moment in time. And also like, number one, what you're doing is it's amazing. And it is badass. Oh, but your mind goes to literal people sacrificing themselves and then just being like, this this shit ain't so bad. Fucking be a man and run through it. It's your ability to change your perspective out of what you're doing. I think that's like the big talent in it all, because we're always zoned in on us. But you constantly take yourself out of it and just be like, that's way better, or that's so much, or that's what we need to get better at, because we're always focused on what we're doing, focused on ourselves, focused on our actions.
Yeah.
But you have an amazing skill of removing yourself and thinking about different perspectives that makes you grateful.
I mean, I agree, and I appreciate that. I never really thought of that as a skill, but I think you might be right. You know,
That's a skill.
yeah.
It's definitely a skill, because like you can also like listen to Rocky or do something like that, and you can get fired up, and you can be like, I'm gonna like go harder, I'm gonna try harder, and that can work sometimes. But a lot of times that'll also kind of stress the body a bit. And sometimes,
you can.
sometimes you're
overdo it.
opening yourself up to an injury, or just getting overheated, or whatever the fucking case may be.
So it's like, and it's a superpower. Use it when you should. You know, if you're super strength and you're running around trying to pick stuff up all the time, you're gonna, you know. But if you're utilizing it from that, so it's like I wake up every day. I come in here to lift. I go to JITSU. I run. I box. Do whatever I'm doing, and I don't hype myself. Like, this is exactly who I am and where I'm supposed to be. It requires no hype and no nothing. I can come in and do this with, you know, I don't take pre-workout. I don't listen to heavy metal in the parking lot. I just come and do what I'm meant to do. Having said that, if you do that and you push yourself and you're truly finding the edge of your comfort zone and going beyond what is safe, you're going to find some times where you have to call on those, you know, those extra resources. But yeah, I'm not waking up every day and like, all right, you know what I mean? I'm Ragnar Lothbrok and this is the last stand of the, you know what I mean? Like, no, I'm just a guy. I'm just a dude, you know, most of the time.
I hear people, they're like, yeah, I'm going, you know, from where I live. They're like, I'm going to go to Woodland and go to Costco. I'm like, you just drove past like 4 or 5 grocery stores on your way there. Those are more expensive. Well, it takes you a lot more time. Like, I'd rather just hit this place up that's close to me when I need to periodically, rather than make this giant haul. You know, it's, again, you got to do what you think is best for you, and that's important. However, time is money, and money is time. And I think like food is money. You know, food is, it's a way to look at food. Food is money, but food is also time as well.
Lots of time.
The less cautious you are with your food, and the more unhealthy, he's talking about health, the more unhealthy your food makes you, the more time it takes you to unwind that whole thing. Yeah. The more time you're going to spend on a treadmill, the more time you're going to spend running, and the more time you're going to spend doing a bunch of exercise just to probably get you balanced out so you're not continuing to gain weight. You could be, there's like a lot of things that if you start to really examine them, you're probably wasting a lot of time and wasting a lot of money. You could probably just do the thing that's a little bit more convenient and a little bit more expensive, but you probably don't realize it yet. And I've referred to this as having a broke mindset. Your mindset is not, it has too much of a governor on it. You're kind of stuck in your previous thoughts. And again, it's understandable to have scarcity. Like, you know, people have horrible shit happen when they're children. They have, you know, parents leave, they have divorces, there's deaths, there's all kinds of shit that happens that is totally understandable for you to have it kind of programmed into you that you're concerned about your money and you're trying to really have a budget. It all makes tons of sense. However, I do think that there's a real value to paying for stuff sometimes. And so you have to kind of wonder, how into this are you? You know, do you want to go to this jiu-jitsu school that they just like, you know, they have everybody there and they have like fitness classes and all these other things going on, and it's like $20 a month or whatever? Or do you want to go to this instructor who is really teaching class, who has a bunch of great teachers and instructors under him, and the place is, you know, $150 a month or something? So, you know, sometimes you're gonna be paying for much better quality. And as Andrew's pointing out, a lot of times you want to just do it right the first time.
Pieratt Project family, how's it going? Now, we talk about sleep all the time on the podcast because it's one of the biggest things that helps you with your health and fitness, your recovery, your muscle gain, your fat loss, everything. That's why we've partnered with 8 Sleep for such a long time now, because the technology behind the mattress allows you to track your heart rate, the amount of times it takes you to fall asleep, your tosses and turns, your heart rate variability. It changes its temperature through the night based off how you sleep, but not only yourself, but maybe your partner on the other side of the bed. It is an amazing mattress. Andrew, how can they learn more?
Yes, head over to 8sleep.com/power project. That's 8 spelled out, EIGHT, sleep.com/power project. Along with more information, you guys will actually save $150 off of your entire order automatically. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Can't let you get away with the Costco diss though. Like man, at Costco, when you can get like 16 rolls of toilet paper and 12 things of paper towel, where you go to Rayleigh's or Target and
fuck those places.
You're getting 4. Costco, you're getting 12, and it's good quality. Costco, I get what you were going for, but man, Costco.
Yeah, but
I like Costco.
But then you get to Costco and you're going to get the toilet paper, and I'm gonna get a rotisserie chicken and some other shit, and then you walk by and like, well, okay, I guess Valentine's Day's coming. I'll get the strawberries too, and it's like, well, shit.
I think
want this.
They
and
have
that.
cheap flowers for all the guys, like, and nice cheap
they're
flowers.
like $20.
Yeah,
Really good.
Really good.
This is like way off topic.
No,
but
it's not.
I think everything's a trick, you know? I think everything,
Yeah.
like when people are like, oh, you know, I make like $100,000 at my job, and then I, you know, have a company car, I got insurance, and they put so much value in all that stuff. It's like, you can own your own car your own way. You don't need to be working for that company necessarily, and you don't necessarily need them to pay for insurance. You can pay for your own insurance. And I think we put so much value in these things. We put so much value in, but they're all they're all kind of an illusion. Costco is the greatest illusion of all time.
Okay, let's go.
And Walmart and all these places, they're well, hey, come in.
Costco
Hey,
and Walmart are different.
hey,
things.
guys, come in. Like, everything's inexpensive, and we have really large things that you get in these, you know, in great quantities, and you're going to walk out with this amazing like plethora of stuff, you know. But as Andrew pointed out, you're going to buy way too much shit. You're going to buy way more stuff than you need to. You're not going to just buy what's on your list.
Must be disciplined.
They already know that. They're getting you with the $4 rotisserie chicken. They have like loss leaders in there and stuff like that. Kind
The
of drag you in there.
$10 pizza. That's
And
like
then you're like,
huge.
oh my God, you look at that. They got a TV for $400. That's fucking awesome.
You know how
They deliver it right to my house.
We
and shit.
need
You know,
one
it
of
just-
those. The
it
game's
just-
coming up. Oh, if the game's coming, we got to get some beer too. Like, we're already here.
The amount of Costco baskets you see filled up to here, it's like,
Oh, dude.
okay, they know how to get the hoarders. That's the
Yeah.
thing. And many people are hoarders who wouldn't.
I
to
like
admit it.
loading up. I think it's kind of great. I love getting like a bunch of eggs and shit. Like I kind of dig all that because it, like, I don't know, you would just, especially as like a lifter, you always think that you're going to be like running out of stuff. Like, I need all this protein. It's like you got like months and months of fucking protein. Like, what are you doing? Most of this stuff's going to go bad or be in your freezer forever.
Yeah,
you know?
that's fuck, dude. No more vegetables. Like, I already told my wife, like, we have like too many shelves already full of vegetables that we're never going to touch. They've been there since like pre-pandemic. Like, they're not going anywhere. But nothing ever has made me feel like such a baller than when I walk in and I get the, you know, like the organic eggs, the big, you know, boxes of it at Costco, and everyone's looking at the, damn, that's expensive. It's like $6 for like that, you know, the regular white ones, and they're like standing there stressing, like, oh, how much is that per? And I just walk in, I grab 2 because the limit is 2. If it wasn't, I would grab more. I grab that and just walk out. Don't even look at the price because I'm like, I need this. I have to have these eggs or else I'm kind of fucked because I eat 2 things. I eat steak and eggs. Like that's all I do. But you know, then I look back and it's like, oh, they're $20 right now for, I think it's like 60 of them. That's still an insane deal. But when you look at it, it's like, oh man, they used to be like $10. Now they're 20. Ooh, I can't swing that. But meanwhile, your cart is full of, you know, some shit that you're never going to use. It's so silly the way we do look at things.
Power Project family, your normal shoes are making you weak. This is why we partner with Vivo Barefoot Shoes, because they have a wide toe box, they're flat, and they're flexible. So with every single step you're taking, if you're taking a 10-minute walk outside, or when you're working out in the gym, your feet are able to do what they're supposed to do in this shoe. They have tons of options for hiking, running, training in the gym, chilling and relaxing, casual shoes for if you're out on a date. You need to check them out. And Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at vivobarefoot.com/powerproject, and you guys will receive 15% off your order automatically. Again, vivobarefoot.com/powerproject. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
You know how to say fake it till you make it? I believe in that to an extent. So like you said, he couldn't control everything, but he at least set the parameters in his mind that he could. And there was a video I watched on YouTube a few months ago. I forget the name of it, but they use this like mindset of like this toxic winning, which I wasn't mad at that. See, I'm kind of different from a lot of the mental coaching people in a sense of I'm not going to give you overly positive stuff. Yes, some of my stuff will give that positive message, but sometimes it won't. Sometimes you got to say, I'm going to win at all costs within means. Like, obviously, you don't want to cheat, lie. You can get into you familiar with the dark triad? You ever heard that term before?
I have.
Okay, so you can maybe get into that, but you don't want to be that person. A dark triad, that's a person who will cheat, steal,
Is it
lie,
Machiavellism, narcissism, and
psychopathy.
Psychopathy.
My man, that's good stuff. 'Cause we talk about psychopaths and narcissists. I think that word gets overused. It's like, oh, they think they're good. They're a narcissist. No, like, I'm a competitor. Why shouldn't I think I'm good? And that's why people, like, sometimes on IG, I get feedback. Good, of course, but I get some like, well, you can't just make people think they're better. You got to be humble. I'm like, to an extent, like, I definitely know I'm not the best at everything. So, but let me know what I'm good at. I'm not going to negate that. Like, why would I do that? And all three of us are athletes. So I think that mindset more people should adopt. Like, you should have a certain, they called it, I think it was like toxic winning. I don't want to quote it, but it was like something like that, of to the point that you will do anything within means to get it done. And that's how I carry my business out now, because there's people in similar fields that I'm cool with them, but I'm going to beat you in a healthy way of, like, I'm going to provide quality so people say, I want Nick's stuff.
What about creating a little bit of like a persona?
Oh,
you know, some of the guys can do that, right? Some of the guys are like, I'm this way outside the ring. I'm this way normally. I'm normally calm. I'm docile. But, you know, Tyson was kind of a little bit of both in and out of the ring, right? But he said that he had so many insecurities. He would cry before fights. He was always terrified. But as soon as he stepped inside the ring, as soon as he got inside those ropes, he's like, I'm the killer then.
People can say what they want about Mike, but I like that mindset, because I use an analogy with my athletes, even the pro ones all the way down to little kids. I have a 9-year-old gymnast that I was telling you I was in a hotel working with, and I used it with her, and I call it superhero athlete. And I'll ask you, who's your favorite heroes? I see Goku in the back, but
I'll pick Goku.
Goku?
It would be between Goku and Black Panther.
Okay, let's go with Black Panther. What about you?
Superman, I don't know.
So those are perfect. The reason I like it better than Goku, because Goku didn't really have too much of an alter ego, but Black Panther can work. And so can Superman. So I'll go with Superman because his is a little easier to analogize. So same thing with an athlete, right? You have this persona in the field, in the ring, the court, whatever it is. And those traits that come with that, there's a certain athletic identity, that's what we call it in sports psychology, that you have to be that high competitiveness. You have to do what it takes, isolate sometimes from your social, circle, because you have to win or be the best. So you have to wear that mask. That's Superman. But who's Superman when he's not saving the world? He's Clark Kent. And Clark Kent's personality, people think he's this docile, clumsy kind of nerd, even though he's like 6'3", 220 pounds. But you put on some glasses. Handsome. Yeah. But the glasses throw it all out the window, right? Forget them knowing his real identity. They still think this man's a loser because he's a news reporter with glasses. But anyway,
still walking around like a 60-inch chest.
Yeah, you feel me?
Pecs hanging
all
out
the characters,
and he's dressed well. Yeah.
All the characters
Hair's
that play
perfect.
Superman are jacked or got jacked for the role. Like Chris Reeve wasn't super jacked, but he was like, I think 6'5".
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then Henry Cavill was like 6'1", 220 solid. So that guy, but get to my point. They have to wear different masks or different identities, and the same thing in sport. I have to be a killer in the ring. I have to be the killer on the court, wherever it is. But I can't carry that because that's one, emotionally draining, because how long can you have that kill, 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 go, go, go mindset before it eats away from you? Like, see it in the movies, like when there's a literal killer and eventually it starts getting to them.
Yeah.
And we can even go on a tangent on that, but get to the point is you have to turn that off at some point. And on the other side, as the Clark Kent, their main identity, their real identity, that's the athlete who knows when I lost, but it doesn't mean I'm less of a person. Because I've seen people who tied, even when I was an athlete back then, to even my current clients, and they'll tie it into their personality and say, well, if I lost here, I'm a loser there, outside in the real world. And that's the problem. So going back to Mike Tyson, I think it's not perfect, but that's a good way to look at it. Like, you have to shift those lanes. You have to.
Yeah, and Ali obviously did it. But Ali even later on said, like, he didn't believe half the stuff he said. He just was like, he wanted to put it out there to build himself up that way. So he put that energy out there, and now he was accountable for knocking the guy out in the third round, and then there would be a good opening, and he'd knock the guy out in the third round.
And I guess that's the other side of when we talk about false confidence. I guess for the people watching, take this in consideration too. They all could back it up. That's the thing.
They got a skill set.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor comes to mind as well.
Exactly.
Right?
So you can't just say it too, because I've seen young athletes who try to carry those same Conor McGregor or Floyd Mayweather, whatever it is, personas. But let's be real. Most kids until maybe junior year of high school, for the most part, skill-wise, aren't the best. Maybe raw talent, but I know most people I played with, I'm from South Florida, where when we played football, every game was like a state championship. Even the worst teams were like 4 or 5 star recruits were on those teams. So you couldn't take any days off. So we knew we had to be realistic. You can't be that guy saying, yeah, I'm going to score this many touchdowns or I'm going to win all the games.
I'm going D1. You're like,
Basically.
yeah, right, bro.
You have to be real. Sometimes you're D3. And there's nothing wrong with that because guess what? If you, going back to my point, identifying where you're at, now I can go forward and say, I'm going to be the best at this level. And if it gets an opportunity to work up, then work up.
You never hear anybody say I'm D3.
Of course. I'm guilty. I said, I'm going to UM. I was like, I'm going to the U. I went to camps there. I told you I ran a 4.40. I was the same size height-wise. I was like 190, but I was ideal, but my skill set didn't fully get there. And guess what? I didn't sign with anyone my senior year for football, and I ended up luckily getting a partial track scholarship at a small D1 AA school, Bethune-Cookman University, is a historically black college in Daytona Beach, where it helped me get on this path to the psychology, where I changed my major like 4 times. I was very indecisive, but I took a class of psychology, and I'm like, I think I like this. And that was back in 2008. So there was a guy, Dr. Ian Payton. I haven't talked to him probably since I graduated, but he doesn't know his class shifted me to psych train, and now look what I'm doing. So thank him out there wherever he's at.
What about the athletes that seem to be stuck in a mindset of like loss? Because you mentioned, you know, for example, Ali, he said a lot of things, but he was able to back it up. Even Conor McGregor, before he became the champ, he was talking like he was the champ, right? And you got to imagine, like, if that's your goal, you need to have that in your mind, but you can't talk like that if it's your first fight. But some individuals, maybe they're sparring and they're getting beat right now, or they're just not where they feel that they want to be, but you still need to have a level of confidence and belief, right? How can you build that from ground zero?
So I guess it goes back to my other point, because that first-time fighter, he has literally no experience. Well, at least in the official fight, he might have sparred or practiced, like you said. But he has to know that when I do this, there has to be a level of expectation. So going to your point, he has to expect something, right?
Yeah.
So I say that should be a high level of competitiveness of being a winner. You don't want to walk in there and saying, man, I'm going to lose because it's my first time. Nah. But you should have an expectation. So going to my point is have a realistic expectation. If you know that because you know where you stand. Let's be real. No matter how good or bad an athlete and how much they lie to themselves, deep down, they know where they stand. Yeah. So either the coach or the athlete himself, depending on the age, it's easier to do it. But if you're younger, it's harder, obviously. But they have to say, okay, this guy I'm fighting is, let's say, 5-0, and I'm 1-0. My first fight was against a no-name person. Yeah. Can you realistically say that I will go through this effortlessly? You're not going to say I'm going to lose, but you're going to be like, okay, I know how he fights. I've seen his competition, how they fight, and how those fights win. Because I think there's this notion of, oh, I'm my only competition. Yes and no. Obviously, you got to beat yourself first. But like I said earlier, I want to be the best in my field when it comes to this mental coaching and stuff. So I'm always looking at similar people, whether they're in the same lane or not. Like I look at Jordan Peterson stuff all the time. I look at Huberman stuff all the time. Not to say I'm going to beat them, but I'm like, if they're doing this, I need to know where I rank. If their videos are getting this kind of engagement, what am I not saying to get that engagement? So going back to your point, if I'm an athlete getting ready for a fight or whatever sport event, where do I engage, or where's my interaction at? Am I doing the things they're doing? Am I getting the outcomes they're getting? Now, for one fight, you can realistically say probably not, but you know you can at least keep up with them and then build from there.
What I like from what you mentioned right there is because like we just did a podcast on guys and body image and how like a lot of people are paying attention to social media, and because they're comparing themselves to people all the time, it's like fucking with how they look at themselves mentally. But when it comes to being a competitor, you have to compare, and being an athlete, you have to compare yourself to not just your other competition, but maybe on guys on your team. If you're trying to be the best on your team, you have to see, oh, fuck, he has better dribbling skills than me. He has better athleticism than me. How the fuck can I catch up? You can't be living in your own world where it's me versus me and never comparing yourself to other people. You have to be okay to do that. You have to be okay to see where you stand and see how you can improve.
Exactly. And the thing going off of that is because when they don't see that, they put them in a box like a bubble almost. You know how people who don't get to see the world, or they only live around their only circle of friends, and they get into a real situation, what happens? They fall apart. Yeah, they don't grow, they fall apart. So that's the same thing with that. So you have to be like, okay, like you said, he's a better dribbler. How do I get to his level? Because even if your teammate is still a person that you need to either compare yourself to be better then so you can help the team, or at least equal to, because at the end of the day, those skills are needed.
I think sometimes a player on a similar team with somebody might be frustrated after practice that somebody else got the praise. You know, hey, Nsema's rebounding really well today. He did A, B, C. And then someone else thinks that means that the coach took a shot at them, or the coach said something negative about them, but they didn't. They said something positive about him. And rather than the next player thinking about how they're going to beat him, which isn't that bad of an idea too, because it's good to have competitiveness even within your own team, is how can I contribute? You know, okay, he has those skills. I got other skills. I can pass. I can do this. I can play defense. I'm going to do that as hard as possible for the next couple days and see if I can get, because I would love the coach to say that about me. But a lot of times I think people are like, well, how come the coach didn't say anything about me? But then they don't do anything about it.
So that comes into, hear the term like intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Because motivation is a term that gets thrown out a lot. And there's some people say, oh, it's not about motivation, it's about discipline, or it's, I say it's all of the above, because motivation, I always say, is the gas that makes the car go, but discipline keeps you in the car. Because let's imagine if I got all the gas to go I'm from Florida, so here to California. Yeah. But if I don't stay in the car, I get out in Texas or wherever stop, guess what? I'm not getting to my final destination. So those people who don't have that wherewithal to stay with it, they're not going to be able to accomplish it.
When we think about hard work, think about someone that's working hard that has 2 or 3 jobs in comparison. Oh, he's throwing in another mind bullet.
Down the
to really think about somebody that, let's say they work 20 hours a week. We would think that person's not a hard worker. Yeah. Versus someone that works 80 hours a week and they have 3 jobs. But who potentially is making more money? You don't really know until you take a look under the hood and see, like, what is this time devoted towards? What are you doing? Maybe you're a material expert at something, and maybe you're a doctor, and you do 20 hours a week worth of surgery. And obviously there'd be other hours devoted to some other things, but you kind of get the idea. Like, hard work is only like a piece of the pie. And I think from everybody I've met, it kind of always starts with hard work, but then kind of morphs in, because you need to have that, otherwise you're done. Have you met anyone that's high level that is not a material expert in something specific? Because I personally have my own experience with meeting people that are executing on a high level. It just seems like they, like you said, develop your purpose. I feel like a lot of the people that I know have scaled because they really learned or investigated and knew a lot about one particular thing.
Yeah, SME, they become subject matter experts. And you have to become a subject matter expert. Like, I know all about franchising now. After almost a decade, I know more about franchising than most people would learn from a university course or going to the International Franchise Association's certification programs, et cetera, because I've been in the trenches. I've dealt with franchisees. I know what it's like when franchisees revolt against you. I know what it's like when they're on board with your vision, mission, and values. And so I've become a subject matter expert. I decided 7 years ago that every month I'm going to study 2 franchises. One that's just skyrocketing, and in any space. Could be Subway sandwiches, could be 7-Eleven, could be Jiffy Lube, way outside of the fitness industry. Why is one skyrocketing? Then I want to study one that's crashing and burning. For example, Quiznos arguably had a better sub, didn't they?
Yeah, they
remember?
were good.
Better ingredients. They didn't have yoga material in their bread like Subway did. Did you guys hear that one?
What?
No.
Yeah. So you've heard of that one, right?
I haven't. No.
You haven't?
Yoga
Okay.
material?
Yeah,
Yoga.
absolutely.
Yeah. So you know what yoga mats are made of? That little rubbery thingamajig. So I don't know if it's the FDA, the USDA says that you can have whatever 0.09% of that rubbery material in food, which is also what the McRib is made of. Because how does it have that perfect shape? You ever wonder that, right? And so how does that beautiful bread hold its shape? And so springy and fluffy, yoga material. And so there's a blog called The Food Babe, and she exposed that. So Quiznos was like, hey, look, we have actual real bread. There's no fucking yoga mats in our bread, right? The meat doesn't have nitrate. It's not processed meat. Our cheese is all natural, blah, blah, blah. So Quiznos, and then when you eat the sandwich, you're like, this is a better fucking sandwich. And they toast it. Yeah. Oh my God. But Quiznos is no longer around. And if there is one around right now, I think there's a total of 60 left on the planet.
Wow.
The Federal Trade Commission, who sees over all franchises, says, hey, Quiznos, your failure rate has been so high of locations that you're not allowed to sell anymore. Every year we get audited by the Federal Trade Commission, all franchises. And if you have a high failure rate, over like 26% or something, then you're not allowed to sell any more franchises. Quiznos is at 42%. Cold Stone Creamery is at 48%. Cold Stone Creamery.
Stone?
Yeah. Baskin Robbins. Good ice cream. Cold Stone. Amazing ice cream because they'll custom make the fucking thing and then you want more of that and you want more of that. Right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah. Because so what Quiznos was doing was taxing their franchisees an extra 9%. So you have to buy all your shit from us at a 9% markup. And the franchisees are like, dude, so we can't compete price-wise with Subway. And now that Subway added a toaster, they're crushing us, right, with their yoga mats. And Cold Stone Creamery, I forget what their deal was, but they did something where, again, the franchisees revolted and we're starting to shut down. And so you've got to show that on what's known as an FDD, franchise disclosure document, every year. How many locations opened, how many closed. And Federal Trade Commission's like, hey, neither of you can open up more locations. Now, here's the ironic part. 2017, Subway closed more stores than opened. That was the first time in Subway history. So every year or every month, I'm studying one franchise that's successful, one that's failing, and I want to know the whys behind it. If I have to call the CEOs or do research on them or listen to podcasts that they've been on, and because of that, I've become a subject matter expert on franchising. This is the fat foreign kid that came from communist country, English is a second language for me, learned personal training, worked as a bouncer at a gay bar, Disneyland, and a personal trainer, and now I know more about franchising so much that people pay me $90,000 to speak at franchising expos. What? And all I did was go narrow and deep on one subject. That one subject a decade now might change because my passion will change, but I'll always be serving. I know that I'm meant to be a servant because if I'm not serving, I will start self-destructing.
Yeah, a lot of people listening, hopefully they can take that and put it into whatever they want to do, study two people or two things, study it for a few weeks, a few months, maybe it's 2 books, whatever it is, but you can apply that to anything. Maybe you're not interested, maybe you don't dig franchises, maybe you don't care about that, but find something that you can study for a little while. I think taking on 2 things is not too overwhelming for anyone.
Not at all. And look, man, if someone's like, I want to be a strong motherfucker, there's probably a handful of dudes, yourself included, that I'm going to study. There's not a lot of dudes. Like you find the best at the top. There's not a lot. Like in that case, I want to go looking for the power lifters who have torn quads and hamstrings and fucking rotator cuffs and all that shit. Because you're not looking for a failure and a winner in that category, right? Like I am. Right. I want to know how not to fail. So I'm looking for failures in franchising as well to go what not to do.
Yeah.
But there really isn't much to becoming the best. Like not a lot of effort. And I'll share this with you real quick. Water boils at 211 degrees. Cool. Throw a raw egg in it. You can make hard-boiled eggs and eat it. One more degree of change, it turns into steam. And you can power a locomotive, and that locomotive can bring goods in and out of towns, right? Steam versus boiling water. One more degree of, I'm going to commit to studying this guy an hour longer than he is. That hour multiplied by a year, per day, per week, per month, will make me substantially better than you.
That is why I'm better than him.
That's it.
That's one reason.
It's one of the reasons.
Yeah. Substantially better looking too.
See?
Yeah. You are very handsome. Both of you.
If you think about like an average person, like, how many people like are listening right now that take just a couple moments to just completely be by themselves and have silence? I'm guilty. I don't really ever do that. I do go in the cold plunge, and I guess that's the only time that I literally have to myself where I'm completely alone and I'm alone with my own thoughts. Even when I'm running, I'm listening to music or something. But that is a good experience for me. I am out in nature and stuff. But I think some people aren't even exploring some of that. So just imagine, if somebody listening and maybe they don't believe in some of the woo-woo stuff, but hey, could you believe it that taking 10 minutes and being by yourself and with your own thoughts could really be productive? And could you figure out a way to do it by being intentional with breathing?
Yeah.
Because maybe just sitting there just sounds like it sucks to you for whatever reason, but maybe you can do it through some breath work.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best approach for a lot of people because I think the reason why people can't approach this is because most people have the intrusive negative thoughts. So they're more so escaping most of the day. And they're not aware that they're escaping, right? They don't realize that every time they're going for these stimulation hits, that it's because they're anxious, and this anxiety is driven from like a really deep space of like unworthiness in a lot of ways, or insecurities and or fear. So that first set of stillness, when they try to just sit still, it's wild. So it's really great to like use the run, use the cold, use the breath, I feel, because it won't be as intrusive for a lot of these people. And they can really like kind of move in that direction, because it's sitting at first, it's still for a lot of these individuals. It's just so hard because the thoughts are just wild, like really aggressive, really negative, really, really fearful thoughts. So it's kind of nice to stack it with some type of movement, cold, or breath.
Even just laying down on the ground, you know, you might think like, oh, this pad is a little bit uncomfortable, or oh, the wrinkle in my shirt feels weird, or all kinds of things run through your mind, because as much as we want to try to shut the mind down or slow it down, it's always at work.
It's always at work.
Even when we're sleeping, it's at work.
Well, it's interesting. You know, I have this theory on the ego too. Like, so since we're not the mind, I feel like a lot of times when we operate from only the mind, and we don't know how to get out of this, like this fear-driven lifestyle, we then manifest and create the ego, right? And the ego's built from a low vibrational place. And people have relied on this ego to protect themselves, but it's unfortunately like it stops them from actually doing great things. It's because it's coming from a place of fear. So I think that's what everybody battles with when they really start working and talking to themselves. So I always use the analogy of, or the remember that cartoon where it has the person, and then there's the devil, or the angel, and then the devil.
Yeah.
And I go, well, once you become aware that you're a soul, so the soul is the angel. The avatar is the avatar, right? And then the devil's the ego. And so that's that dialogue that you're consistently having, like, hey, I should work out today. And then it's like, start Monday. That's the ego. Like, it's like when you go to lay down and do breath work, be like, it's cold, I'll do it later. And like you get up and you do it later. And the brain has always been like relying on that motherfucker, the ego, for protection. So it only kind of knows to listen to that guy. And so he'll listen to that. Your avatar is going to keep listening to that guy all the time until it builds a relationship with this guy. And how do you build a relationship with that guy? And that's by getting present. That's by becoming love. So by becoming still. And the more you connect to that higher self, that soul, the ego dissolves. It can't exist in that realm. It dissolves. And I think Joe Dispenza mentions that too. They can see it on a brain scan that the ego, or what the ego is, or in a wavelength, literally dissolves
while they're meditating.
And isn't that what psychedelics can provide too?
They do the same thing. The ego also dissolves on psychedelics as well. So there's really something here. So everybody that relies on this ego, and they even identify with the ego, that's who they're listening to. But that thing's built out of fear. It's all
makes a lot of sense. Like I think it has to do with the left and right brain, you know, starting to
communicate,
come together and communicate.
Yeah. And that was a big moment for me, understanding that I'm not the ego. And what's even cool too is I think you get to the point where you no longer acknowledge that there is an ego, because it is a manifestation. You don't even acknowledge it anymore. Okay? You don't give it any power. And I'm starting to dabble with that a little bit as well, like not even acknowledging that there is this thing that I've created, manifested within my mind, called the ego.
When you say you don't acknowledge it, what do you mean exactly?
Even like say it's my ego, because I think the ego and the brain are the same thing, to be honest. You're right. Does that make sense? Right.
No, I get it. So you don't separate it from yourself.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I don't create like this whole other thing that's just a whole other thing. You know, it's like just like the Inception thing. You can keep like zooming out. So the ego is just another thing, and maybe the ego can even create its own ego. Who knows? So it's like you start just like removing that part and just the brain.
I liked what you were mentioning earlier, right after, I don't know if it was before or after we did the breath work, but we were talking about how, like, you know, this stuff allows you to be present, and it actually allows you to go through your day. And sometimes like you'll walk up to the fridge, and then you'll catch yourself be like, wait, I'm not hungry. Why am I here? Why am I opening the fridge right now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you really start to
zoom out.
Exactly. Because you have these routines that you'll just naturally be going through if you've built in a routine. And it's just like, you're kind of like a robot. Like you go to the fridge, you see that there, you take it to the couch, you eat it while watching something. But when you become present, you start doing some of these breathwork practices, cold plunging, etc., you're like, wait, why am I
doing this? Yeah.
You know, like I've been scrolling for the past 5 minutes. This is useless.
And that buffer is huge. That's when we can get a chance to kind of like, whoa, step outside of it, right? And most people right now, they don't have the capability of that buffer. They don't know how to get that, like that, just that little bit of space in between their person and their actual self. And if you really do remove the identity of this self, it makes it really easy to look at it from a really wonderful, objective way. And you see it as literally retraining it. Like it's like almost like a monkey mind. It's like, or a child, if you will. And so then you can really just start like approaching it and do it through love, never shame or guilt, right? Like, so when he messes up and like does something that doesn't serve him, I can be like, well, that's okay. Let's pick ourselves up and maybe let's handle it a little bit differently, you know? But if we identify with that self and it messes up, then we're like, I'm a piece of shit. I'm these things, right? It's like we turn on ourselves. It's kind of wild. So if you can separate and then like be really kind to the avatar when it goes through a moment of like messing up, you can make some profound changes very, very quickly with many of your behaviors through just being loving towards it as opposed to like shaming it.
Got Power Project family. If you're trying to increase your muscle mass, if you're trying to lose body fat, if you're trying to stick to your nutrition plan, if you're trying to get fit, pretty much if there's anything you're trying to do for your health, we know that sleep is the biggest determining factor to help you get from point A to point B. That's why we've been sleeping on 8 Sleep mattresses for probably more than 2 years now. And the main reason is the technology behind the Pod Pro. Now, the Pod Pro is like the Tesla of beds. It will change its temperature based off of how you're sleeping during the night. And if you have a partner that's sleeping on the other side, they could have their own temperature settings. We all sleep hot here, and I used to wake up in a puddle of my own sweat. Gross. That doesn't happen anymore because of the 8 Sleep mattress, and I've been getting the best sleep of my life. Now, if you don't want to replace your mattress, you can just get the Pod Pro cover, and you can put that over your current mattress to get all the benefits of 8 Sleep. But if you also need to replace your old nasty mattress, you can get the Pod Pro cover and the 8 Sleep mattress. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, you guys got to head over to 8sleep.com/Power Project, and you guys will automatically receive $150 off of your order. Again, 8sleep.com/Power Project. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Maybe as a kid, you weren't encouraged to try different things. Maybe as a kid, you were discouraged a lot of times. Maybe you went to go do something and you made a fool of yourself. You went to go play baseball. You swung at one ball and like you hurt yourself, like hurt your back or something, or the ball hit you and you cried and everybody made fun of you. Like, you're a big baby. You're 12 years old. What are you crying about? It's like, well, baseball freaking hurts. And maybe you had a bad experience. What I want to encourage you is to start to try to really find different things, because you don't know how they can change your life. You can go from having a broke mindset and not understanding things that are outside your box that you were born into. And I'm not even saying that the box is necessarily broken, but it doesn't allow you the growth mindset that's necessary to be able to have a mindset that can continue to grow over time. And that's kind of what I mean by monetizing your mind. Like, let's make this mind grow, and over time it's going to become more and more valuable. And will it ever turn into money? It probably can, but we'll have to think about that after we already acquired the skill sets.
Yeah, and I just, as a kid, if you're not encouraged, you're almost ostracized if you do try other things. All my uncles, everyone played football, and when I wanted to play soccer, it was like, that's a girl's sport. You're not tackling anybody. Like, don't be a little wuss. And it's like, but I don't want to do that thing. Like, I love watching the Niners play and stuff, but like, I'm actually kind of good at soccer, but then, everyone makes fun of me for it. So then I don't do it. And whether or not that I carry that with me, but a lot of people who aren't encouraged to, have the monetization mindset, they do carry it into their adulthood and stuff. So how can, like, what do you think is like kind of step one if somebody, they're working their 8 to 5 because they're supposed to, maybe they don't want to. So like, how do you start to like kind of break away from that mindset?
Yeah, I think it's, I've heard Jordan Peterson say something like this. He said something to the effect of that pursuing happiness is a luxury, but pursuing what you are I'm losing the word. But basically he meant like by pursuing the thing that you love, that's like a moral obligation. It's a moral obligation to pursue the thing that you love, because you're going to find a lot of life's answers in there. So what does that mean? Does that mean you just quit your 9 to 5 and like, I'm going to follow my dream, bro? I don't think so. I think what it does mean is that you simultaneously, you have your job that you have an obligation, you have a responsibility, but it's going to be your moral obligation over a period of time to pursue what really fills up your cup, what really fills up your heart. Is it helping other people? Is it, do you really love running, but you literally don't have like a lot of time for it? You know, because some things that we like and we love, it's kind of hard to get good at them unless we have a specific amount of time for them. I know we know that you can slowly but surely get better at something. We do it once or twice a week. We know that, but it's a more difficult route. And that's the route of somebody who's super patient and super mature. Most of the time we're neither one of those. So we choose to go to jiu-jitsu like 4 times a week, or we choose to run every day. You know, like I run every day, not because it's optimal. I run every day because it's like what's in my head and it feels good for my brain to go do that. But yeah, somebody that does have the 9 to 5 and they don't have the luxury to go around and chase what makes them happy, you're going to want to still think about like, what is the thing that you want to do? I think if you're to back way up and you're to think, what's this going to look like in like 10 years? Again, think of your way into lifting. You know, I'll just use my own powerlifting career as an example. If I would have took 6 months off from powerlifting and just reset and reloaded and rethought and just flat out didn't powerlift and wanted to pursue raw lifting a little bit more, I would have hit every goal that I had and then some. Like, I just know that I would have. I've done things like that before, but I did it when I was younger. At this time around, I was like, I ain't waiting around, man. I'm going to give this another go. Meanwhile, in the previous training cycle, I blew out my pec. And so when I came back to powerlifting and I benched 578, that was after I tore a pec for like the second or third time or whatever it was. In training for the 578 bench, I slightly tore my tricep, and I still was able to go to the contest and be able to hit that 578 bench. And when I went for 600, I gave a pretty decent push on it, but once the weight of that kind of hit me, it was too much, and I tore my pec again. But again, if I would have just pulled back a little bit, if I would have just taken my time and said, how do you really want this to end? How do you really want this powerlifting career of yours to end? You want to end it with an exclamation point, or do you want to end it with like, it's pretty cool you did 578, but it's not 600. You know, you have control over these things, and anybody that's in any sport, anyone that's in any, it's even worse than that a lot of times. So at least for me, it sounds so stupid to say some of this, but at least I was already Mark Bell. At least I was already secure. I was already making money. I already had the slingshot. I was already doing all these things. I was already somebody in powerlifting. I already did the things that I wanted to do. There's some people that they just cannot stop bench pressing. They cannot stop doing curls. They cannot stop doing tricep pushdowns. And their elbows are killing them. Their body's killing them. Their body's telling them, the last thing that we need is for you to do these exercises this week, you know? And they can't take a week or two off. Someone's shoulder's bothering them. And there they are, you know, doing bench and doing dips and doing push-ups. I just got to work through the pain. And that's not the answer. The answer is to like, hey, what would happen if I just took a big step back from this and just kind of reloaded with a little bit more information, with a little bit more knowledge? So again, kind of back to, you know, somebody having like a 9 to 5, or somebody being in college and kind of just feeling like in a funk and they're not doing what they want to do. Just think about, you can do what you want to do, for a shorter period of time during the day and during the week than what it is you have to do for now. Then over time, you should be able to flip those things around to where now 70% of the time is you playing and doing and messing around with the things that you love. And 30% of the time is kind of the other stuff, because there's always like some stuff that we don't have an opportunity to do. But even as a kid, you think about it, you go to school, what percentage of the day is that? You know, you go to school, seems like forever. You leave at like 8 o'clock in the morning. You come back at 2 or 3 every day. And that's 5 days a week, every week, except for some weeks some time in the summer. And so that is really flip-flopped, right? Like that's you doing, maybe some kids really enjoy school, so there's that. But it's a lot of kids probably doing things that they don't really want to do, they don't really love to do. And then on the other side of it, maybe they play volleyball, they do some stuff with their friends, but that volleyball practice is an hour. The time they got to hang out after school with their friends is 30 minutes. They hang out with their friend on the weekend every Sunday. It's like for 3 hours or something. It's like so minor compared to the amount of time they spend in school. So hopefully as you get older, you can flip some of that around. I think that like a 90% of you doing what you want to do or you doing what you don't want to do, I think both of those are bad. I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's enough balance. Some people, might say, well, I just want to rocket to the top. And so I'm going to go 90% and do I'm going to wake up at 4 and those things are fine, but you got to kind of back yourself up from that even and think the number one killer of humans is stress, more so than cigarettes and more so than heart attacks and cancer, because it's all kind of lumped in there. And once you're stressed, it makes your body, makes it a lot harder for your body to fight things off. If you're super stressed, most likely it's going to be harder to sleep. And so even someone like a Joe Rogan who talks about like longevity, it may be harder for somebody like that, or someone who's driven like a Jeff Bezos or an Elon Musk. Might be harder for these guys to live longer. I'll use Jeff Bezos as an example because I realize Elon I don't think really trains. But you would imagine that Jeff Bezos must have had some pretty stressful times in his life. Rogan seems like he's ahead and seems like he's not super stressed, but there are hundreds of millions of dollars. There are hundreds of millions of dollars that have been generated by his show. And even the success that I've had, it would be foolish for me to not recognize like that's an extra stressor, having employees, and then, trying to, have people work with you, have people work under you and things like that. And that communication, like those are all stressors. And then who you are, even in your community, who you are in your family. Those are all things that it's kind of cool. Like if you're hovering around like the middle or the high end of the middle, those are all cool spots to be, because someone could easily a family member could be like, oh, I'm going to get there too, But when you're really killing it, it's like, it's a different thing. And there can be, it doesn't have to be, but there can be more stress with things like that. So things can become kind of unbalanced. But anyway, that 90-10 is like, that's not something you want to mess with. You want to have it. You want to have your time commitment to the things that you don't want to do. It's probably going to be pretty high when you're young, and you should be able to flip it as you get older, but you're going to have to develop a skill set, and you're going to have to develop a monetizable brain, a monetizable mindset to have something that's valuable so you can flip that around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you were paraphrasing what Jordan Peterson was saying, in regards to like, it's your obligation, to kind of pursue this or whatever. I can't remember who else it was. It might've been Stephen Pressfield. But basically it's kind of like your duty, like you're put here on this earth for it. And, talk about zooming out 10 years from now. Like when you were powerlifting, were you doing it for anybody else? Like period.
No, and I think that's what drew people to it.
Yeah. So, that's amazing.
People like, this guy doesn't care. Like he wears this weird hat and it's sideways or backwards or whatever the weird nonsense I was doing and rapping and just Yeah, just having fun is for me.
Yeah, it was all for you. When I was working on my photography, it was because I didn't want to go back to my regular job. Like I wanted to just break away from that. But even for myself in doing that and now being a part of the podcast, like we do have people that work for us now, or well, they work with us, but you know what I mean? Like the podcast has helped families now, you know, and like, so if I wasn't here, maybe that wouldn't happen as successfully, you know, kind of tooting my own horn here. But like for yourself with, you know, powerlifting, I don't really need to say too much, but like you've helped a lot of people, and it's all because you were kind of focused in on your thing. This is your thing, your passion. I'm going to go all in on this for myself. And then 10 years later, it's like, oh, wait a second. I'm impacting the entire world now. So it was more than just your obligation to pursue your passion. It was why you were put on this planet. You know, you were meant to do bigger things than just your typical, you know, whatever, 8 to 5 person, although that person's also put here for something.
Yeah.
But maybe that person thinks it's too late. How do you break that weird feeling of somebody? You can throw in any age and everybody will think, oh, I missed the wave. From, you know, 20s to 30s, 40s, 50s, everyone probably feels like it's too late. How can you help somebody get over that weird thought?
I think the only people that will feel like they're missing out are people that, you know, maybe get a look behind the curtain, or they're like, oh, that's what everybody's talking about. Holy shit. They're just like, whoa. It would be like entering like a new world or something, you know? There is something really amazing about figuring something out. I don't know if people know what I'm talking about, but like, I don't know if you've ever been driving and if you heard a quote or heard something on a podcast, and it just hits you so hard. Like you're almost like, I should pull the car over right now for a minute. This is insanity, because whatever it was that they said connected the dots in your brain over to the other side that was like disconnected for some reason. And I hope people know what I'm talking about, but I have parts of Davis, California. I live in Dixon, but I have parts of Davis that are like, they're cut off for me. I can't link them together. I'm like, wait, how do I get from this street over here to this street? How do I get to, you know, how do I get to this school, or how do I get to this area over here? And they're not connected. They're connected by other roads because I know those roads. Those are familiar. I'm like, I need to backtrack and go over those other roads. But sometimes you get a message or you see something and it just connects that stuff together once and for all for you. So sometimes there's like a quote or something that you hear where it brings all that together, and you feel that, like I get in goosebumps even just thinking about it, because it's been so transformative to me so many different times, so many different ways. And it's sort of foolish in some ways because you've heard people say similar things, but for whatever reason, they didn't like land on you the right way at that time. And I think timing is everything. So with the person that, you know, with the person that kind of wants out and they want to start making adjustments, they're not even going to really realize that they want out. They've been inside this coffee mug, you know, for 20 years. And they're like, this is great, man. This is awesome. Like every morning they dump a bunch of coffee in here. It's awesome. And just swim around in the coffee. And they just think that that's cool, but they don't really realize, like, you don't have to just be a coffee mug. You could be a shaker cup, or you could be a bigger cup, or a smaller cup, or a bottle,
a ninja blender,
or a ninja blender. You could be you don't have to be what Kenny calls poverty water, like the Crystal Geyser water you get from the gas station. That's super. We talked about
that water sucks.
Well, it's super crinkly. Like I have a Fuji right now Fiji rather, that I put up to the microphone, and it only does that. But the Crystal Geyser's like,
it's just like a bag.
Yeah, you're like what is this thing?
When you go to open that thing, it like you basically have to like grip it. But if you grip it too much, it shoots water everywhere. It's terrible.
You could be a glass bottle of Pellegrino, for God's
Dude,
sakes.
Could you imagine?
You understand what I'm saying? You could be opaque.
Yeah. What else could we be? I guess. Well, this is a family show. I looked up at our. At our display. Yeah, I've seen a pump of sorts, but you don't want to be one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Or
you're gonna get used and abused. Yeah, so I think it's hard to even think outside the box when you're like, I have a job, and that job allows me, provides me on the weekend to go fishing. I get to go skiing with my kids in the summertime when they have off from or in the summertime skiing. I get to go on water ski. I get to ski with my kids when I have off in the wintertime and things like that. So your job does provide you some things where you're like, oh, that's cool. But I think some of that, not all the time, I think some of that sometimes is a little bit of a trap. Just like the company car, I make 80, but I really make like 110 because they gave me a company car. It's like, no, you actually make 80.
But I have really, really good benefits that I only have to pay like half of what everyone else pays. Like it's tight. It's dope. Right.
And hey, look, making $80,000 a year is a blessing. Making anything over like $60,000 a year, I think is a huge blessing, and it could be a step in a great direction for you. But I just think that sometimes we get kind of trapped by the dollar amount. Even if you were making 120 or 150, that sounds cool. But what are you leaving on the table? Oof. Let's zoom again. Let's zoom back out again. Here lies Andrew Z. Like, he was awesome. He was such a great dad. He was such a great this, such a great that. But we also know, like, not that anyone's going to say this, when you're dead, but we also know how much he was into cars and how much he was into. He started really talking a lot about jiu-jitsu, but he never went. Mm-hmm. He had those cars he was going to work on. He never worked on them. He's talking about podcasts. He never did that one either, but he was really nice. He was a really sweet guy, but it would have been cool to see. I wonder what he would have, Mm-hmm. So if you can zoom out and think like, man, it's just like, they're not even really risks. I don't think they're not that bad. Like, they're not that bad. Every once in a while they're tough. Mm-hmm. But I think anyone that can see outside the coffee mug that they're trapped in, you need to take a little risk. You need to try to make that leap, make that jump, because I was explaining this to somebody the other day. They're like, I have this crazy opportunity. They're like, I could give X percentage of my company to this superstar person, and like, boom, off to the races this would go, right? And I was like, well, okay, there's two ways of looking at that. One is like, that is crazy because you haven't been in business that long. Like, that is amazing. Like, that is, you should really pat yourself on the back, because I have not even ever heard of that before. Like, that's wild. So there's that. The second thing is, like, that could work out and that could be amazing. The third thing is, and still on the positive side, is if that guy takes X percentage of this company, then I should understand that I have the ability to build other companies and other brands, since I just built this one. And I'm talking to this guy that's such a hot commodity. I'm talking to this person that's such a hot commodity. So even if I do sign this deal, which is risky, because I did put a lot of work in over here, it's not that big of a risk because you're still so valuable. And I shared this before with Ryan Spencer. Ryan Spencer has been a friend of mine for a long time. We have to have him back on the show, by the way. We got to get him on the podcast. He's an absolute animal, absolute beast in there, political muscle in there, deadlifting, 5 plates for reps and shit like that. Weighs like 170.
He does it by himself in the morning.
He does it by himself at like 5 a.m. He's an absolute animal. He's got 2 kids, somebody I really admire, but it was years and years ago. And he was really sweating it about this job, and he had this other kind of job opportunity, and it wasn't like a move real forward. It was more like a lateral move. And he and I discussed it. I'm like, Ryan, do you understand? Like, out of all the people that I know a lot of people, and most of them are really stupid, unfortunately. But I said, you're one of the smartest guys that I know, and you work super hard. So this move that you're thinking about making, let's say you make the move, and let's say the move doesn't work. You're 3 weeks in, you're like, oh my God, this is not working. It's not like you can't get another job. Like you already have all the capacity is already there. You already have all these skill sets. No one can take any of that away from you. So even if you switch jobs and let's hypothetically say everyone hated you, no one would hate him because he's super sweet. He's a very nice guy in a lot of different ways. But let's say that was the case. And let's say that his skill set wasn't matching up to that job, which that wouldn't be the case either because he's super smart. If any of those things were the case, he could just bounce on over to another job. Now that does seem scary, but I'm like, even if you were to lose a little bit of money, you currently don't dig what you're doing. Like you don't love it right now. You don't love what you're doing and you used to love it. So even if it's less pay, which I don't think it even was, but even if it is less pay, what if you're waking up in the morning like 30 minutes earlier because you're more pumped to go to work? You got a little extra pep in your step. Sometimes too, like depending on the type of job that you have, if you're kind of like more than enough qualified, like overqualified for a particular job position, who's to say that you can't develop like a side hustle somewhere? You know, so let's say that you do go and work somewhere and it's for a little less money, but you are really experienced. You should be able to write your own check a little bit, not in terms of the money, but you should be able to say, hey, look, I've been doing this for 15 years. You know, here's what I can bring to the table. You know, are you cool with me taking every Friday off or taking half days on Friday and you could spend extra time with your family or whatever it is that it amounts to be. But in this job that you can work a lot easier and more efficiently and have wrapped up earlier in every single day, you might be able to develop that online business that you always wanted to do. You might be able to pursue something else. And I told my wife the same thing when my wife years ago wanted to quit the job that she was at. And she was pretty upset and stuff. I said, go in tomorrow and quit. She's like, I can't do that, you know? I'm like, why not? I mean, you had the job for 2 years. If we had to, we can collect unemployment or whatever the case was at the time. And I was like, you know that you can make a similar amount. Like you can fill in that job within a month, you know? She's like, I don't know if we have a month. I was like, we're good. We're good. You'll probably get a job faster than that. But anyway, she switched jobs and ended up in a job where she didn't have to be in the office as much. And then it kind of just parlayed into us being able to make Power Magazine. And then I did something similar with my own career where I moved into somebody else's gym when I already had my own gym. That provided me the comfort of making the gym free. That provided me the comfort of not having to be on the hook to actually coach people as much and to train people as much and to think more freely. I went on more walks. I thought about powerlifting more rather than just like actually doing powerlifting. And I created the slingshot. Like a lot of those things, they wouldn't have happened without having more freedom. And because I still needed to, I was still in the process of developing the skill sets, but you can't think of something like the slingshot without a skill set within a given field. It's just not going to happen. You either have to be a coach in that or you have to be a participant. Like someone from the outside isn't going to really be able to think of a cool idea for that particular sport unless they have some experience. And the experience could be through somebody else. Like John Danaher, he's a practitioner as well and a really high level one, but he's the most famous jiu-jitsu coach out there right now. He could think of something in jiu-jitsu because he lives in it all the time. Now, like his friend that maybe doesn't practice jiu-jitsu, it's going to be harder, but he might hear him talk about it all the time. And he might say, hey, you ever think about making this? And the other, he might go, whoa. And that's where you can actually have that. But you have to have the experiences within those given fields to be able to think that way. Otherwise, it's hard to think outside the box.
Now that you got your mindset right, go ahead and check out this video if you want to start losing fat fast now. It takes a while, but there's some concepts here that'll help you learn how to lose it fast. And check out this video if you want another video on mindset. But how about the mindset of Arnold Schwarzenegger? He was a dark dude. And not if I say his last name Schwartz, you know what I mean.